Good evening and welcome to the Community Tree Outreach event. I am Mark Berry, Director of Parks and Recreation, and wanted to talk a little bit about why we're doing this community outreach and the street tree inventory. So the department operates on 4 pillars of service to the community, and one of those is conservation. And we consider ourselves stewards of parks and open space and trails, and it's our responsibility to try to utilize best management practices in order to meet that pillar of service. So that's the why. The how is what we're doing is gathering as much information as we can about the information, about the resources that we have now, and also looking at what condition they're in and what opportunities there are to make those, to better protect those resources. And so the what is actually the street tree inventory. So we are collecting public feedback. We're doing a street tree inventories. We're looking at thousands of trees across the community, doing an assessment of the condition they're in, and we'll utilize all that information from both the public engagement and from the street tree inventory and put together a community tree management plan, which will help us better manage the trees moving forward. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Yeah, you.
Do you want to, should we introduce Sarah real quick? Or
Okay.
do you want to sit there?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sarah Schechter, and I am with Connecticut Sea Grant. I'm really excited to partner with Groton and to get a better understanding of the community tree project and to contribute where the needs fit in and where we can collaborate. I'm on the Sustainable and Resilient Communities team, and that's where I focus. And I'm excited to get to know more and to see more of what I can collaborate on the community with.
My name is also Sarah Lilly. I work for CNUC. We're contracted to complete the tree inventory and the management plan for Groton. I actually live in Milford, Connecticut, but grew up in Rhode Island, and I'm a certified arborist, utility specialist, and tree risk assessment qualified. I do want to mention we also have my coworker Daryl sitting in the room. He's a certified arborist, municipal specialist, tree risk assessment qualified, and he is actually collecting the data for this project in the field. So, all right, should we jump into it?
Yeah.
All right, do you want to stay? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Position. All right, thanks for the intro, Mark. So we're going to talk a little bit of background for the project, why we're doing this. The trees in Groton and in Connecticut in general, they've been managed since people have been here, since Ice Age times, by the Native Americans who managed the trees for food, for building materials, for fuel. And when Europeans first came to Groton and Connecticut, they noticed the beautiful trees here and used them for shipbuilding, especially the tall, straight white pines were great for ship masts. And there's a strong shipbuilding history in Groton even today. And then during colonial times, a lot of the trees were harvested for fuel, for building materials, for fuel. And so there weren't many trees in New England at that time, but it's really been reforested in the past century as we've turned to alternate fuel sources, we've built more buildings or outsourced the materials. And that leads us to today, where we place a great deal of value in our urban trees, in the aesthetic beauty they bring to our towns, and we want to preserve that. They provide many benefits to us. So some of the benefits that the trees in Groton provide, they're crucial to building resiliency. And resiliency can be defined as the capacity to rebound from difficulties. So some of the difficulties that trees can help us with, they provide shade. So in extreme heat events, they cool our streets, they shade our buildings. You sit under them in the parks and fields, and they helped you to get through those times. They also intercept stormwater runoff. So with fewer trees, more water would be, there would be more extreme flooding events, more water would go directly into the Sound, and they also filter out pollutants in that stormwater. There would also be more extreme erosion. They provide food and habitat for all the wildland creatures that we enjoy here in Connecticut. Even the squirrels, any of the songbirds, they depend upon the tree's presence in order to live here. They filter air and sequester carbon for us, which is hugely valuable. And they're an important element in creating a happy, healthy, more connected community. So why are we completing this project now? Mark might have some insight into the background of that, but now is a great time to be looking at trees. Trees have been impacted by changes in our climate. So temperatures, it's been shown they're shifting to be warmer, and that can affect trees. Some trees can't survive here in coastal Connecticut as well, such as sugar maples. And then also we are able to plant trees that are more commonly associated with the South up here in New England. Trees can be impacted by periods of drought and heavy rain. And then there are pests that can affect our trees. The emerald ash borer is a great example. It's decimated our ash populations both in an urban setting and in our forests. And then actually this image is of a European beech tree, and beech leaf disease is running rampant through New England right now, which it's a relatively new disease and it's still being studied. And in order to live safely alongside our beautiful trees, they need to be managed. We need to know where they are, what kind they are, what they need in order to survive longer. And we also need to know where trees can be planted, where can we grow our canopy. And now is a really exciting time for trees. $1.4 billion was actually recently funded by the federal government for community and urban tree planting, which is the largest influx of funding for urban trees. And it's a really exciting time to be looking at them. So for this project, we're first determining basically what does Groton have in terms of its tree resources. And to do that, we're conducting the inventory of the trees and the planting sites. We also need to know what the community wants for their trees, where they want to see more trees, how they use their trees. So we need that feedback from the community in order to do that. We'll be completing the community forest management plan based on the input from the community and from the inventory. And we'll be presenting those results, enacting the management plan, and then importantly, developing a mechanism for reflection and adjustment of that plan. So for the tree inventory, it's including all of the streets within the public right-of-way along the streets and some public properties. And the data that's being collected include the species of the tree, diameter, if it's blocking any pedestrians or vehicles or impacting the pavement or sidewalk, major defects and their probability of failure, and then also the recommended maintenance for those trees. We'll also be documenting planting sites. I'll see if this one works. I'll give it a second. And actually, this is Daryl out in the field measuring the diameter of a tree. And it skipped it. So I'm trying to show a video of what our data collection software looks like. So it probably just needs a minute to think about it. This looks like it's over by the community garden. And basically, we would be dropping a tree data point there, and it would be asking us about all of the information that we collect for that tree. So for the community forest management plan, We'll be using the information from the inventory to create a summary of the Groton Community Forest. So this will include tree species, tree size. That indicates the age of the forest. If there's more smaller trees, that indicates a younger forest. If there's more mature, larger trees, that indicates a mature aging forest where it might be prudent to start planting more trees. We can develop some maintenance strategies. An example of that might be if there is a large population of ash trees still standing, we'd want to maintain those, either treat those that are in okay condition or remove those that are in major decline. We can look at the tree species composition overall and determine if more diversity needs to be injected into the forest. So this could include a recommended planting list of tree species. And while all this is going on, we'll be thinking about other management plans that Groton has in place or has in the works. This might include the Parks and Rec strategy plan that came out this year. Is that right, Mark?
The Recreation Master Plan, yes. Yep.
Recreation Master Plan, thank you. And a general timeline with some happy trees in there. We're currently in the middle of the tree inventory. We started last month, and we're starting to ramp up with community engagement right now. We'll be using that information to start drafting the Community Forest Management Plan in the coming weeks. We'll be presenting to the community late November, early December, and adopting the CFM Community Forest Management Plan in December. So that brings us to you, to the community in Groton. What can you do? I'm a huge lover of trees, and I always encourage people to go out and learn about your trees. So there are a few events coming up in the town on November 11th, Veterans Day. There's a neighborhood tree walk and ID. You'll be identifying tree species. That will be in Sutton Park at 10 a.m. On November 18th, there will be a Groton community walk at the sheep farm. I think the time is still to be determined. And you can always reach out to the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection for tree advice. That's a great state resource for tree species, for tree pests and diseases. I always encourage people to maintain the trees that you have. It's much easier to maintain planted mature trees than to start from scratch with a new baby tree. So go out, look at your trees, determine what they need. I always encourage people to be involved in your town, to attend these types of events and learn about what your town is doing with your trees. And finally, that brings me to the tree survey. So please fill out the community tree survey. We need this information to know what the people of Groton want to see in their trees. What do they want to see in their neighborhoods? How close are the nearest green spaces to where you are? So there is a QR code that you can scan to take the survey. And I believe there are hard copies available at the Parks and Rec office. Is that true, Clayton?
Yes.
Yes.
You can access it on greatergroton.com/tree inventory.
Awesome. And you can access it on greatergroton.com/tree inventory. And it is available in multiple languages. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. Do you have any questions? Okay. Did you fill out a survey?
We have nothing on Zoom right now, but
Okay.
are there any takeaways so far from the tree inventory? Being out in the field, trends.
Trends. What would you say? So there was a question from behind the computer. Have there been any noticeable trends in the tree inventory so far? And I'll let Daryl answer with any anecdotal trends.
I think the biggest trend is that a lot of the members, the city people, didn't know that the survey was even happening.
Yeah.
Everybody I've talked to, and they asked why it's happening. is the biggest thing. I mean, the species have been quite, it's pretty, I haven't looked at the data, but it's pretty broad, really. That's about it. I think the biggest thing is the people didn't know it was happening.
Right.
I mean, they see somebody walking down their street with a hard hat or a vest on, and, you know, what are you doing?
Right.
Have you seen many newly planted trees or more mature trees?
Everything has been mature, not a lot of things planted in the tree lawns at all, barely. Most of the tree lawns are vacant.
Okay, well, that's good. There's
Room
available
to grow.
planting sites.
Yes, there's a lot of room to grow. There's
Yeah.
a lot of planting sites.
I think anecdotally, I could say that, I mean, Groton is an older New England community, so it wasn't built to have trees along the roadway, and that's something that Groton will have to work with.
The roads are narrow compared to other survey areas we've been.
Mhm.
They're narrow. That's all I got.
Well, it's good to hear that there's a diversity of trees. I mean, that's an encouraging sign.
Mhm.
And the fact that there's an opportunity for planting, that's also encouraging. Uh,
I would go back to just say that also, I mean, when you're going to do the planting sites, you know, we're looking at a lot of stuff, you know, the width of the planting site. And if there's power lines, you know, I go back, old saying, right tree, right place. So you do have to put a thought into it, what you're going to put in there,
Yeah.
you know?
And that will be part of the plan is recommended planting, so.
Right.
Yep. And it's encouraging to hear that there's this large community tree grant. And that's for planning purposes or for planting?
For planting,
Planting.
right,
Excellent, okay.
yeah.
And I would suspect that having done an inventory and having a management plan would, because it's probably fairly competitive, would put us at an advantage.
Definitely, because you
Yeah.
would then know where you can plant trees
Right.
and what
right.
you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like Groton has a great community of partnerships, which I know is encouraged in the applications for this grant money.
Right.
Mm.
And yes, and we have a community or a sustainability and resiliency manager.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she's working on a plan for the community, and I think this kind of fits in nicely with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is as far as like national guidelines or even state guidelines go, is there a certain number of trees that are recommended per capita or per household in the town or city?
Oh, that's a great question. I have to say, last week I was at the World Forum on Urban Forests, and a popular, I guess, planning ideal that's going around right now is called the 330-300 rule. Which is, Mark, have you heard of it?
I have. Is it 330, 300, right?
Right.
So 3 trees per yard.
Mature, yeah.
Mature trees, 30% coverage,
Yep.
and within 300 feet of open space or with trees or parks,
Exactly,
yes.
yeah. It's actually developed in Europe, so it's 300 meters, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Within 300 meters of like a open space, green space, you can enjoy trees. So that is one ideal that's out there, and I think the person who talked about it, Cecil Kanondanek, I butchered his last name, but he's from the Netherlands. He said that the city of Malmö in Norway actually adopted that into their urban plan. Like, that is something that they will plan for their for their city going forward, to make sure that everyone has that, which I thought was neat.
That's very cool.
Yeah. I can also say that Connecticut is one of the more forested states in the country. I think Connecticut Deep estimates at 57 to 60% canopy coverage, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably not the case in more urban and densely populated areas, but Connecticut does benefit from that. And it is peak leaf season right now. It's beautiful out.
We good? All right. Well, Sarah, thank you for all of that great information.
Sure.
And for those folks that may be watching this later, please scan that QR code and take our survey. As Sarah said, putting together this, the management plan, getting community feedback is critical in developing that plan. So take that survey, share that information with us, and all of this will be incorporated into the community tree management plan. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Beth.